Hello everyone, welcome back to Anthropology PYQ series. So friends, first of all, I welcome you all to this session on behalf of Sriram's IAS. So myself, Dr. Suresh Kuramkunda, and I'm your anthropology mentor and guide. So friends, as a part of our Anthropology PYQ series, we are trying to just solve and learn one PYQ one day. So this is our basic aim and objective. So in this particular series, till now, we have completed around more than 19 questions, right? So try to just go through those questions also, those who have not gone through that. So try to just go through that questions also. And in today's discussion, let us take up another important question from 2025, previous year, Anthropology paper 1 question, paper 1. So let's try to discuss its approach and how to answer that particular question, right? So good morning to all of you. So good morning, Vanushri. So right, so first, let's look at today's question. So what's the question of the day with us? So let's see that. So when we see from that perspective, so in day 20, so today, let us take up this question. Discuss the Miocene hominoid remains and the evolution and their significance in evolution. So this is the question. So the question is all about the Miocene hominoid remains. So this is the question. So let's try to understand this particular one. So did anyone try to attempt this particular question by chance? If anyone has attempted or tried to attempt, you can just give your opinions in the chat box. Now let's see how you can approach or how you can proceed with this particular question, right? So first, let's see what's the approach. So in the very introduction, what you can do is you can just simply mention about the significance of Miocene epoch in the process of human evolution. So if you see from the geological time scale point of view, we have different epochs and different periods. So amongst those, Miocene epoch is one of the important geological period, so which has had profound influence on the human evolution process. Then further, in the introduction itself, you can mention about various Miocene hominoid fossils or remains. So that in the introduction itself, you can show that what kind of Miocene hominoid remains that we have. So this is another important aspect. Then further, in the body portion of the answer, you can systematically discuss various Miocene hominoid remains. So what are these Miocene hominoid remains? Do you know any example for this? If you know any example of any Miocene hominoid remain, you text in the chat box by chance if you happen to remember or know. So just text it, right? So that's one thing. Then highlight the evolutionary significance in a systematic fashion. So how these Miocene hominoid remains helped in the process of evolution and what is their, how they have shaped the human evolution process. So that's one thing. Then finally, simply you can conclude the answer by further reiterating the role of Miocene epoch in the human evolution process as well as the significance of the Miocene hominoid remains in the process of evolution. So that's how you can conclude the answer. So I hope it is clear with you all. So those who have joined, so for all of them, once again, good morning. So very good morning, aspirant, you also, right? Further, let's begin the discussion and let's see how you can just introduce the answer. So in the very introduction, as I have said, so you can simply talk about the significance of Miocene epoch in the evolution process. So there, if you see, the period that is around 23 to 5.3 million years ago, this period is basically known as the Miocene epoch. So in this period, during this period, there was a great strides in the process of human evolution. Great strides in the sense, there were so many sort of fossils that we have got, which further laid foundation for the ancestral lineage of the humans. So the way we are and how we are now, so our all ancestors we can trace back into the Miocene epoch. So that's one thing. Now, if you see, this period, this Miocene epoch is basically called as the golden age of the apes or monkeys. So why it is called as golden age of apes or monkeys? It is called as golden age of monkeys because, or apes because it marks the greatest expansion and the diversity of the hominoids in the entire evolutionary history. So if you see from the perspective of humanoid evolution process, so there was a great diversity of apes that were found in during this process, right? So we are getting the response like Shivapithecus, Dryopithecus. Very good. So Benishri, so that's the right answer. So if you see some of the examples of the Miocene hominoid remains, so there you can see some of those things. During the early and middle Miocene epoch period, so what has happened means there was emergence of some of the very, very important apes or Miocene hominoids, such as in Kenya and Uganda, that is in Africa, we have got Proconsul, that is one Miocene hominoid. Then in Africa, further, we have got Moratopithecus as well as Afropithecus. So this was another fossil remains that we have got. Then from Europe, we have got Dryopithecus, and from Asia, we have got Gigantopithecus as well as Shivapithecus. So these were nothing but some of the Miocene hominoid remains or fossils that we have got. Is that clear? So now what you have to remember here, so the Miocene hominoid remains, examples for them is nothing but you can remember these examples. In that you must and should remember these things. Proconsul, you have to remember. Afropithecus, you must and should remember. Then Dryopithecus, you must and should remember. Shivapithecus. So these are 4 things that you must and should remember, because some of them have been systematically and highlighted in the syllabus also. So that's another important aspect, right? So let's proceed further. So why do we call them as our near ancestors? What were the features that reflected in the evolution process that helped in the process of human evolution? So see, there were some of the key features of these hominoids, so which helped in the process of human evolution. So one is nothing but the Y5 molars. If you happen to take the molars, and the molars, so there were 5 cusps, so Y-shaped cusps, so that you can see on the molar. So that is one transformatory change that we can see in this hominoid remains. Then the brain size, it was improved or increased brain size. So that was one another important characteristic feature. Then improved shoulder mobility, then loss of tail. So all such kind of features, they helped in the process of hominization. So again, hominization means the process of evolution of hominins from the early apes and monkeys. So that is known as hominization. So all of these features helped in that process. So that's one important aspect you must and should remember. Is that clear for you? Now, let's try to learn about the first thing. So there in the introduction, we have said that discuss various Miocene hominoid remains. So that is another important part. So in the body portion that you have to do. Now, let us take up each and every species mentioned here, and let's try to know some of the important points about them, right? So first, look here. So these are the Miocene fossil hominoids that we can have. So starting from say 23 million years ago onwards, we have the Miocene epoch. So you can see the thing started from 40 million ago, then here 25 million ago. So from here, can you see Proconsul? So Proconsul we have got in and around 23 million years ago. So that's the timeline. So you should remember. Then Shivapithecus. Then we have Uranopithecus. Then Dryopithecus. So like this, we have got a lot of Miocene hominoid remains. So in simple fashion to say, those fossils that we have obtained or that we have discovered, which were belonging to the Miocene epoch, so they are nothing but Miocene fossil hominoids or Miocene hominoid remains. So this is what the basic demand of the question. So if you see, so they are all nothing but the things belong to the hominoid category. So these things. So now further, let's begin with the discussion on the Proconsul. So Proconsul is one of the earliest Miocene hominoid. So there you can see, you have to remember these important points. So try to just look at this particular image. So this is a typical depiction of the Proconsul. So what we can find in this and how you can just remember the features. So you have to observe the image carefully. Now, first and foremost thing, what about the geological time scale or geological time period to which this particular species belongs? So first and foremost thing, it belongs to early Miocene epoch. So early Miocene means roughly around 20 million years ago to 18 million years ago. So this was the period of the evolution of this particular species. Then further, where this proconsul used to live, or what is the geographical distribution of it? So geographically, it is distributed in and around the Kenya and Uganda. So in these places, the proconsul used to flourish. So that's one another thing. Then what are the physical features? So this is very, very important thing. Now, you look in the feature and try to just imagine it in the image. So first, loss of tile. There was no tile for this particular species. Now, you try to just look in this image. So there is no tile for this particular proconsul. Then ape-like teeth. Teeth were ape-like. So monkey-like teeth were there. Then monkey-like body. Can you see the body of this particular animal entirely? It looks like monkey-like. So monkey-like body. And it was arboreal and quadrupedal. Quadruped. So can you see it is walking on the four legs and it is on the trees. So it is arboreal, it is quadruped, it has monkey-like body and there was no tail and the teeth were monkey-like. So these were some of the physical features that you must and should remember about proconsul. Is that it clear for you? Now further, what were the anatomical findings that we have got? So we should mention anatomical findings also. So there was larger brain case. So the brain cranial capacity has been increased compared to the earlier monkeys. Then flexible spine. Spine became flexible. So this was very, very important evolutionary change that we should remember, because once the spine became flexible, so then that slowly led these animals to become the, in one way to say, kind of bipedal structure. So that's one thing. Then grasping limbs. Limbs become grasping. So now you can see here, so this particular monkey could able to grasp something. So this is one thing. So proconsul. These are some of the important details that you may mention or you can at least remember if not. So that's one thing. Now further, let's try to move further and let's try to know about the another important ape. So that is Dryopithecus. So Dryopithecus is a typical hominoid fossil that we have obtained from the European countries like France, Spain and Hungary during they belongs to the middle Miocene epoch. So where period of around like 12 to 9 million years ago period. It is known as middle Miocene period. Early Miocene, middle Miocene and late Miocene. So 12 million years ago to 9 million years ago. So this was the probable time of its survival. So that is one thing. And during this, if you see what were the physical features of it. Now you look here. So long arms were there, curved fingers were there, then thin enamel was there and suspensory behavior was used to be there. Now you look at this image. So this is a typical depiction of the Dryopithecus. So can you see long arms? So look at the legs and look at the arms. So long arms were there. Look at the hands. So hands were curved. So curved fingers. So fingers were curved. So that is one another thing that you can see. So this is one thing. Then the cranial affinity with the African apes. So when we compare the cranial affinity of this Dryopithecus, so Dryopithecus is a European fossil hominoid. So when we see the African hominoid remains, let's say Moretopithecus or Afropithecus, so its cranial capacity or cranial affinity was matching with that of those African species. So that's one another important aspect. Further, arboreal brachiation evidence. So there was an evidence of arboreal brachiation. So what is arboreal brachiation? Specialization of the hands and limbs according to the arboreal way of life. So the arboreal way of life means the one who lives on the trees. So that's how. So you can see how the fingers are the curved fingers and the fingers of the legs. So how they look like this. So these are some of the important features about Dryopithecus that you must and should remember. Right? Now, we have another important species that is known as Shivapithecus. Can you text where we might have got the Shivapithecus? So in India, it belongs to India. So in India, in which basin we might have got the Shivapitikas? If you remember, you can text in the chat box. Further, let's proceed towards the Shivapitikas. So you can look the Shivapitikas. It probably looked like this. So Shivapitikas, if you see, so mostly it belonged to middle to late Miocene period. So roughly period of 12 to 17 million years ago period. So it was one thing. And then we got this Shivapitikas from the Asian countries like India, Pakistan and all those things. So Shivapitikas, we have got the evidence, fossil evidences of Shivapitikas from Shivalik hills of the Himalayas. So that's one important aspect. So very good. So the answer is also very straight. So Shivaliks, very good. Good. Now look at the physical features of this particular Shivapitikas. So now the Shivapitikas has had orangutan-like face, concave profile and oval orbits. Orbits were oval. Now look here, orbits were oval and the orangutan-like face, the face resembled like that of an orangutan, and apart from this, like had concave profile. Profile was concave. So can you see concave profile? So that's one thing. And next, the cranial similarity was similar to the orangutans and generalized postcranial skeleton was there. So this is one another important finding. So these were some points that you can remember about the Shivapitikas basically. So further, if you see, we can discuss about the Gigantopithecus. So the name itself, it says it is a gigantic animal. So in a way, you can say it as a kind of Bahubali of the hominoid human remains. So Gigantopithecus, you can see how gigantic it is. So by look itself, it is looking like a kind of strong and tallest animal. So like this. Now, it used to belong to the late Miocene period. So roughly it is flourished during the 2 million years ago to roughly 0.3 million years ago. So that was the time period of its probable survival. Further, if you see, it was distributed in and around China, Vietnam and India. So in and around the Southeast Asian countries, Asian and Southeast Asian countries. So it was there. Then physical features were these things like largest primate. It used to be considered as one of the largest primate among the hominoids. So that's one thing. Then it had a huge jaws and the huge molar. So you can see its structure. So that's how the Gigantopithecus was a kind of Bahubali kind of species. So that we can have it like that. Then anatomical findings. What were the basic anatomical findings? Anatomical findings were like it was highly robust dentition. Dentition was highly robust and it had a kind of bamboo diet adaptation or forest diet adaptation. So in the hand itself, you can see, can you see it is holding some bamboo, isn't it? Can you able to catch that? So it had a kind of bamboo diet adaptation. So this is how you can remember some of the important features. Is that it clear? Now let us proceed further how these Miocene hominoid remains helped in understanding the human evolution process. What is the significance of it? So there, if you see, first and foremost thing what these Miocene hominoids have given to us is that they provided us a systematic evidence or foundational evidence for the lineage, ancestral lineage. It provided a kind of ancestral stock. It showed that these animals could be the probable ancestors of the humans. So that was one thing that they have given to us. So first evolutionary significance, we can talk from the point of the tracing the evolutionary, tracing the ancestral stock. So look here, so Miocene fossils, be it could be Proconsul, Dryopithecus, Shivapithecus, they represent the common ancestors of the modern great apes and humans. So that is one important significance that we can find. Further, what they have done, so it represented a kind of diversity with respect to the locomotor organs. So locomotion means what? Movement from one place to another place. Locomotory organs. What are the locomotory organs for us? Basically, they are known as the legs and hands, if you see from animals' point of view. So basically appendages. So these Miocene hominoid fossils, they showed a wide variety of movement patterns. So we can able to see arboreal quadrupedalism, clinging, and suspensory adaptation. So all of those things we can see from the Miocene hominoids. So that's one thing. Further, they represented a kind of wide variety of dietary adaptations. So just now we saw about this Gigantopithecus, where Gigantopithecus has got adapted to the bamboo diet adaptation or forest diet adaptation. So if you see in this entire history of this Miocene hominoid remains, so they had a kind of the typical diverse dietary adaptations. And if you look at the dental traits, dental characteristics, so they indicate frugivory. What do you mean by frugivory? If anyone knows, frugivory basically refers to the practice of feeding or the practice of relying on eating fruits, frugivorous, like that. Then hard object feeding, that's one thing. Then ecological experimentation. So there are nothing but some of the important dietary adaptations that we can see, right? Further, we can also understand the geographical spread or geographical diversity of these species. So we have found these fossils all across the Africa, Europe and Asia, which demonstrate a kind of wide adaptive radiations. So adaptive radiation is also one of the important concept. So where we try to, we can see like evolution and divergence of animals to different places. So then further, hominin context, we can also get how the hominins has been evolved from the monkeys. So that's one thing. So it provides a kind of evolutionary backdrop for the human African ape split. So during roughly 8 to 6 million years ago, there was a split with respect to the African apes and the humans. So this was one thing that we should remember. So this period provides a great significant contributions in this regard. So that's very, very important, right? Further, what's the further significance of this Miocene hominoid fossils? So one thing you can remember is morphological experimentation. So usually these hominin remains, they show a diverse cranial, dental as well as post-cranial forms, which reflected the evolutionary trials in the body as well as locomotion. So there was a huge morphological variations that we have got. So that is one another thing that we can remember in this evolutionary significance. Further, cognitive and social evolution. This is further important aspect that we should remember. So during the Miocene epoch, all the fossils has had an increased brain case. So the cranial capacity has been increased. So this increase in the cranial capacity suggested as that the early cognitive development began in the Miocene period. So this is one another systematic thing that we should remember. Then further, there were huge environmental adaptations. So this further indicate that responses to changing habitats from dense forest environments to other things like woodland and savanna kind of mosaic. So this further exemplifies and explains us the adaptation of the probable ancestors of humans and apes to the changing environment and climatic patterns. So this is one thing. Further, dental and dietary insights. This was another thing. Then extinction and survival patterns. So these things will further highlight systematically the selective persistence of the traits, how nature selects the fittest aspects. So that thing also we can understand from this Miocene hominoid fossils. So this is how you can mention all the important points in the evolutionary significance, right? So let's have a glance of all these things. So first, we try to understand the Miocene hominoid fossils provide us a kind of ancestral stock. So that's one significance. Then it provided a kind of locomotor diversity. This is one another important thing. Then further, the dietary adaptations reflects different modalities of the dietary adaptations, frugivory or like all such kind of things. Then further, geographic spread. So they have spread all across the Africa, Europe, Asia, all those things. Further, like hominin context. So there was a split in between the African apes as well as the human ancestors. So that was further important evolutionary significance. Then morphological experimentation. So there we have got different forms of morphological features evolved in Miocene period, and the cognitive and social evolution also took place a shape during this evolution of these species. Further, environmental adaptation is one important aspect. Further, the extinction and survival provided how the nature selected the fittest organisms. So these were all some of the important points that you must and should mention in the second or this portion of the answer. I hope that is clear to you all. Now further, let's discuss about the conclusion. So what could be the probable conclusion, how you can conclude it? So as I have said, you can talk about the Miocene hominoid fossils, that's one thing, and where you can say that these fossils, starting from primitive proconsul to the more derived Dryopithecus and Shivaphithecus, they offer key insights into primate evolution. We can systematically understand the process of primate evolution if we systematically study the proconsul to Dryopithecus and Shivaphithecus. So that's the one point you can mention. Then further, what do they just give us? So they just illuminate morphological shifts, adaptive diversity, then a kind of early ape biogeography, so where they have been distributed, biological as well as geographical studies, and they provide evolutionary backdrop from which hominins emerged. So that is another important aspect that we can get. So finally you can conclude the answer with this kind of lines, where you can mention that the Miocene hominoids, though they are not our direct ancestors, but we can trace the evolutionary steps that shaped the early apes and set the stage for the development and evolution of hominins. So that's what you can mention in the conclusion. So that's the way to proceed for this particular answer. Right? I hope it is clear to you all. So if there is any doubts, you can just comment in the chat box. So further, so let's see what's the next question that we are taking for tomorrow's discussion. So in tomorrow, that is day 21, let's take up this question. Let's move back to this section A. So we have completed all the questions from section B of Anthropology paper 1. So if you happen to watch this video for the first time, you just try to look at the previous videos also, where we have completed more than 19 questions. So in day 21, let's take up this question. So the question is all about compare and contrast the symbolic approaches of Clifford Geertz and Victor Turner to understand the culture. So this is one thing, right? The question is all about the symbolic and interpretive school of thought. So we have two important scholars, Clifford Geertz and Victor Turner. So try to just recollect the concept and try to just answer this particular question. So where you can talk about the differences. Compare and contrast means you have to mention the similarities and differences between the approaches of Clifford Geertz and Victor Turner. So some of you will confuse how to just approach this particular question. Compare and contrast. Highlight the similarities and dissimilarities, that is differences between both of their approaches. So that's where you can mention and you can proceed towards this particular question. So you can submit the answer through our Telegram channel if you happen to write this question. So you can just drop these answers at our Telegram channel. So Anthropology Guide, you can join through the link or through our QR code. So that's all for the day from my side, friends. So I hope there is no further doubts. So shall we wind up the discussion for the day? So hope there are no doubts. So let's meet tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. and let's discuss about the question on the Clifford Geertz and Victor Turner, that is symbolic and interpretive schools of thought. So thank you all for joining me with this session. We'll meet exactly at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow.